Welcome back into Movement Parallels Life, and thank you for joining me for another guided movement practice. Today we're going to be looking at 22 different movements, each for about 60 seconds. Keep in mind that your movements don't have to look exactly like mine. This is about progress, not perfection. So use the video and use the cues to help you make the adjustments to make these movements work for you. Alright, we're going to jump right into things today, starting off with our first pattern, the side bend sit to split kneel. Set up your side bend sit position strong and stable. Keep your shoulders back, your spine long, and your core braced. From here, press your knees into the ground and drive your hips forward to rise up to split kneeling. You can pause for a moment to feel the active hip flexor stretch, and then control your way back down to side bend sit. Swivel your hips and repeat on the other side. When transitioning from side to side, you can use your hands in contact with the ground for additional support. You can use no hands, or you can roll across your back. Alright, that's your cue to check the screen because we're switching patterns. Next up, we've got half kneeling step outs. Start from a low kneeling position or wherever you're comfortable. Rise up to tall kneeling and then step one leg forward to transition to half kneeling. Focus on bringing mobility to your hips and ankles. Step out at different directions and shift your body weight to create different sensations of stretch. Maintain balance and control through each transition and use active effort to create stability in each half kneeling position. Remember to coordinate your movements with deep, relaxed breathing. Alright, next we're working a transition from deep kneeling to deep knee bending. Start in a low kneeling position with flexed feet. Lean your upper body back until your knees become light on the ground. Press the balls of your feet into the ground and draw back through the creases of your hips to transition into your deep knee bend. Start by using your hands for additional support and balance, and then see if you can perform the transition without hands. Pause in your deep knee bend with a long spine and upright torso, or sit back further, trying to sink your heels towards the ground in a flat-footed squat. Increase your mobility by expanding your strength and control through the full range of motion. Alright, next pattern, kneeling back reaches. Rise up to a tall kneeling position with flat or flexed feet. Keep your pelvis level and your bottom ribs dropped to maintain good spinal alignment. Rotate through your shoulders to look behind you and extend your arm into a reach. Brace your core and your glutes as you lean back from your knees to intensify the stretch. Alternate from side to side and explore variations like posting one hand and reaching across your body or reaching back from a half kneeling position. Our next pattern is a sequence that takes us from a rock up to a cross sit to kneeling. With a rounded spine and braced core, rock back, Rock up with crossed ankles to transition into a cross-legged sitting position. Shift your weight forward onto your knees and uncross your legs to transition to kneeling. Depending on the surface you're moving on, this sequence can be a little awkward or uncomfortable. Use your hands as needed to provide additional support. As always, focus on your breathing and pay attention to how the cross sit feels on both sides. And now we'll continue on with mixed rock-ups. Keep your core engaged and focus on maintaining the position that allows you to transfer your momentum through a smooth rocking action. Use a figure 4 rock-up to transition to half kneeling, or rock up into a squat position or single leg squat. Play around with the blend of momentum and active strength coming from your hip flexors. Pause at the end of each rock-up for just a moment to find your stretch. Focus on smoothness and control as you rock back for the next rep. Rock up one last time and transition into foot-hand crawling. Take a moment to set up a strong position. From your hands and knees, keep your arms locked out, actively pushing through the ground. Spin the pits of your elbows forward. Tuck your toes and lift your knees to hover 2 inches off the ground. Keep your hips and head at the same level as you begin picking up your opposite hand and foot. Once you've got this contralateral or opposite hand-foot pattern down, begin to move around your space. Maintain deep, relaxed breathing coordinated with your movements, and maintain a long spine so that you're able to see what's going on around you as you crawl. Start by crawling forwards and backwards, but then branch out and start moving in all planes. If there are any obstacles in your environment, start moving around them. Stay in that strong, stable foot-hand crawl position, and we'll move on to crawl pass under transitions. Keep your core braced, arms locked out, and spine long. Pick up your opposite hand and foot and then rotate towards the hand that you lifted. Allow your leg to pass underneath your body and transition to an inverted crawl position before you reverse your path and go back to foot-hand crawl. Once you have the rhythm down, focus on smoothing things out. Link together your transitions seamlessly. Transition into an inverted crawl position, and next we'll work on a combination of strength and stretch with a transition from a straddle L-sit to a deep kneel. From your inverted crawl, keep your arms posted and locked out as you shift your weight forward, bringing your knees towards the ground. You'll feel a stretch through your shoulders, quads, and feet. Some of the earlier movements have prepped you for this pattern so you can explore a deeper range of motion. Then shift your weight back, bringing your hips between your hands. Press through your locked out arms and try to hold your hips off the ground. If possible, extend your legs into a straddle L-sit. If not, that's totally cool. You can modify this by keeping your feet in contact with the ground and still focusing on the compressive strength of your core and hip flexors. Alternate between these two positions and dial them in with the adjustments that work best for you today. Transition to a kneeling position, and next we've got kneeling get-ups. This will be an expansion from the earlier movement, deep kneeling to deep knee bending. From your flexed foot kneeling position, lean your torso back until your knees become light on the ground. Draw back through the creases of your hips to catch yourself in a deep knee bend. From there, rise up to standing, and then reverse the path. With control, lower all the way back down to your kneeling position. You can stay with this standard kneeling get-up pattern or pivot to the knee jump variation. Brace your core, swing your arms forward, and explosively drive your hips forward as you press off the tops of your feet. Jump onto your feet, landing in a half squat. Pay attention to the alignment of your knees as you land. If you're building up power and confidence, you can assist this movement by using your hands. Push off the ground, a set of yoga blocks, or 2 chairs. Rise up to standing and we'll transition into single leg squats. I'll demonstrate a few different variations. You find the version that works best for you. The first version is the assisted hover squat. Use your free leg for just a little bit of assistance as you lower into and come out of the depth of your squat. Second version is the hover squat. Extend your arms forward and your legs slightly back behind you. Squat down and bring the knee of your free leg to touch or hover over the ground. And the third version is the pistol squat. Extend your arms and your free legs straight forward as you lower down into the squat. Work through a partial range of motion or use a heel lift to modify this version. Rise up to standing and we'll continue working on that same standing leg for a minute of single leg balancing. Challenge your stability by creating movement with your free leg, hips, and upper body. Explore a variety of different movements like swinging your leg around your body, stepping over and back, or hinging and touching the ground. Go with whatever comes to mind to challenge your range of motion and your ability to recover your balance. That's time, and now we're going to repeat those 2 movements on the other leg. Switch back to single leg squats. Work with any of those 3 versions and see how this side compares to the first side. Rise up to standing and continue on with your single leg balancing drills. Return to 2 feet, come down into a deep squat position. Our next movement pattern is the crawl, hop to squat. From your deep squat position, plant your hands in front of you. Shift your weight into your locked out arms, press actively into the ground to make your feet light enough to jump back into a crawl position. Sit your hips back to your heels and enjoy this backloaded crawl for a moment before you shift your weight back forward, press in through those locked out arms, and jump your feet outside your hands to transition back to your deep squat. As you get the pattern down, begin playing around with the rhythm and tempo and begin moving around your space. Next, we'll transition into arching sprawls. This is one of the more challenging movements in this series. Let's start to break it down. Starting from a high hip crawl, lift one leg and jump off the ground. Arch your spine and allow your elbows to bend, lowering your chest down to the ground. Push into the ground and brace yourself so you can smoothly roll down the front of your body. It can be helpful to slightly turn your hips so that you roll down the outer portion of your thigh as you complete the movement. Then tuck your toes and sit your hips back to your heels. Spring forward onto your feet. And of course, if this movement is feeling too demanding, you can always stick with a standard sprawl. Transition to a supine lying position and we'll move on to long body rolls. Begin in a tuck position, keeping your core braced and your spine rounded so your lower back stays in contact with the ground. Maintain this core connection as you extend your arms and legs, roll onto your side, stomach, side, and return to your back. Bring your arms and legs back into your body to return to your tuck position for just a moment before you go into the next rep. Take a few seconds to rest and reset. Give your core a quick break before we go on to our next pattern. We'll keep the core work going with rotational rocking. Start in a compact tuck position, keep your core braced, and create a small rocking action. Time the movement so that as you rock back onto your shoulders, you swivel your hips slightly to the side. Continue this pattern until you rotate a full 360 degrees, then reverse directions. For an additional challenge, rock up to a seated position, take your feet off the ground and balance only on your glutes. Alternatively, you can make your rocking movements larger. Rock up to a seated position, rock back at an angle to drive your rotation. This action will be more like simulating a backwards fall or a backwards roll. Continue on with your rock ups, and now we'll add a transition to crossover sit. As you rock back, place one ankle across your opposite knee. This will allow you to rock up right into your crossover sit for a deep hip stretch. To create the stretch, keep your spine long and lean forward from your hips. Keep your crossover leg actively engaged to protect your knee. Keep your front foot flexed and draw your thigh bone into the hip socket. Alternate sides and use the momentum of your rock up to deepen the stretch. Rock up and transition into a straddle long sit stretch with reaching. Maintain a long spine and keep your shoulders back. If you find that your upper back is rounding and you're struggling to stay in this long sit stretch position, then bolster your hips with a blanket or a towel. Maintain this long spine and your pelvis rotated forward to elongate your lower back. Work with your current level of mobility as you lean from your hips and reach at different angles. Use active effort to keep your legs open and extending away from your body. Allow your hips to rotate as you explore the full range of motion. We've got 3 more movements in today's practice, and we'll go through these quick because as you can see, I'm starting to get rained on. Move into a cross-legged sitting position and we'll transition from cross sit to high hip crawl. Fold forward in your cross-legged sitting position to stretch your hips. Make sure to get both sides. Then rotate through your shoulders, plant your hands, twist your body to transition into a high hip crawl. From your high hip crawl, shift your weight forward, step one leg next to your hands to transition into a wide stance squat, and we'll work some lateral shifting. Perform about 10 side-to-side shifts, keeping your torso upright and sinking down into your hips. And we'll finish today's practice with wide stance hinging and windmill reaching. Set up a strong wide stance with your feet pressing down into the ground and your thigh bones externally rotated. Hinge forward from the hips, keeping your spine long. Plant one hand on the ground and rotate to reach your opposite arm to the sky. All right, that's a wrap on today's practice. Thank you for taking time out of your day to come move with me. I appreciate you, and I hope this one leaves you feeling great in your body. If you enjoyed this session, show some love by hitting that like button, subscribing to Movement Parallels Life, and if you want to get deeper into the movement, come train with me on the Playbook app for access to my best programs and follow-along workouts. That's it for me. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.